Okay, I grew up in the church and I knew about Jesus, and my faith started out as just that, a knowing type of faith. And over the years, my faith transitioned into a believing kind of faith. It started out that I knew Jesus died for me. I knew why he died for me. I knew the purpose of that. I knew what to expect in my life. But I continued to live in the same sinful ways. Over time and through situations in my life, I realized that there was more to that God wanted more from me. I look back and I say, hey, my faith it didn't just have this instant moment where I said, oh, I believe. I grew up believing to some degree, but I didn't live it out. And I think there was a point over the situations in my life that I realized that God wanted me to not just know, he wanted me to actually live it. And so I was thinking about this last week in my salvation, and I thought about how when Valerie was in the hospital and she was a year and a half, right at a year old, she had that seizure, and I remember the doctors looking at me and saying, we don't know if she's going to make it through this situation. And I remember looking at this little baby that was purple and she had foam coming out of her mouth, and I said, okay, God, why are you allowing this to happen to her? Why are these particular things going on in our lives? And I realized at that moment that I just kind of had a peace that God said, hey, you know what? I'm not doing this to you. This is just something that's happening. I love you. Everything's going to be okay. And he wanted me just to know that he doesn't want me just to have the knowledge of him. He wants me just to trust him. And over the years, I finally realized that I may not know everything. I may not know what his intent is in my life, but I know that I have to trust that he's going to take and do the things in my life that he wants me to do. And when I ultimately thought of salvation, and this is the thing that I always think of when it comes to salvation, I think of India. India left a lasting impression on my life. And I think of the temple in India. And that was a huge turning point for me, because I remember looking at the people there that were worshiping all of these different gods. And they were putting their hope in all of these other gods. And I remember this lady came up to me and she asked what we were doing there. And I told her that it was just beautiful. We just wanted to see it. And for the rest of the time, I just had this feeling that there's nothing beautiful about this place. There's nothing that God has for this place, that he wants these people's hearts, and that we have a responsibility to share that. And ultimately, I figured out that's what salvation is about, that God wants our hearts. He wants our lives. He wants us to be dedicated to him. And after that situation, I couldn't help but think of that. I couldn't help but think, what does he want me to do? Where does he want me to go? And when I looked at that desperation in their lives, and I said, if we don't do something about it, they're not going to know that salvation. They're not going to know that love that we have. And I thought about it. We have that in our lives today. And so when I think of salvation, I just think of what great love that is.